Okay, so with this one, I'm going to show you how to add texture to the tree. You can see I've zoomed in, and I'm going to start at the top of my tree here. I have opened up, not my darkest tint, but my medium, my 50-50 tint, which there's some on the lid, so I'm just going to be working with it from the lid. I'm just going to take a little bit at a time. So, what I like to do is I like to work in just little vertical lines, and I work with the tip of my brush. I just kind of go like this, and I don't really think about trying to make it exactly perfect, exactly straight lines. I'm not making any sort of pattern. I'm not trying to make any sort of exact order. I'm just taking and I'm adding in some vertical lines. Some of them are taller, some of them are shorter, some of them kind of overlap. These lines are not meant to be really sharp and jagged. They're just kind of meant to give that idea of, hey, there's something going on here. Now, because tree trunks are kind of cylinder-like, well, they're not kind of, they are, they're cylinders. How perfectly straight they are, well, they grow in nature, so some of them, you know, you've looked at trees, are not really perfectly straight. They tend to curve and bend and stuff like that. But they do have a cylinder-like shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a little bit more definition to the outside edges of this one tree branch that I'm working on, so that way those look a little darker. I'm not giving a whole lot of detail to them right at this exact moment in time, but there are certain spots where, just based upon where I have my details right now, that are going to be darker. I'm not going to add in a whole bunch. I like to work on my painting as a whole, so I will go and I will start and I will go so far, and then I'll move on to another area and I'll go so far, and then I'll come back and I'll add some more details. That way I'm bringing up everything together versus focusing on one little thing and having it exactly the way I think I want it, and then getting farther along and realizing, oh, I spent whole entire class period adding that one whatever, and now I'm covering it up because it's not dark enough, or it's too dark, or something. So I like to work on it as a whole. So there I was using my lighter of my two, or my darker, actually I was using the darker one. Oops, that's okay, whatever. So I was using my darker tint. Now I'm going to take some of my, my darker shade. Now I'm going to take some of my lighter shade, and I'm actually going to go back and I'm going to add over the top, I'm going to add some more lines. Now I'm using the same brush, this is a number 8 round, that I used to paint in everything else. I'm fairly skilled at using one brush and just going for it and not really worrying about it. If you don't feel comfortable trying to add in some of these smaller details with the same size brush, or maybe you picked up a bigger brush, maybe you picked up a 10 and you were like, yep, that was good for filling in, but it's not really good for details for me, then go get a smaller brush. That's fine. I only have so many of each size, so you might have to share. You can't have every single size all to yourself. You'll probably have to share. But go grab a smaller one. That's okay. This is how I prefer to do it. This is how I'm most comfortable with doing it. Now I'm going to take some of my darker tint. This is a tint this time. It's not a shade. I'm not messing up my vocabulary. And I'm going to take, and yeah, I'm not washing my brush. I'm just adding a little bit. And I'm just going to kind of here and there throw in, keeping the lighter one in the center. Okay? Keeping the lighter one in the center, because then it gives the idea that the edges are darker and that it actually turns and curves in space. So I'm going to kind of do that, throw those in here and there. Oops, I hit the camera with my brush, but that's okay. Alright, so that is how I add bark-like texture to my tree. I will continue down. Normally I would use all of one color and I would finish out the tree, and then I would go back and I would add in the lighter color and the lighter color, but I just wanted to show you the one area so you can kind of see this is just painted in solidly. This one is a mixture of both of my tints just to kind of give that division between the two, because I used my lighter tint, my 25 black, 75 red here, and that was also the base that I used for here. So then I threw in some of my 50-50 tint or shade mixture, so that way there was some division between the two, since how they were both the same base color. So that's all I did, was I just really lightly painted over the top to mix that in, and unfortunately that video got corrupted, so you don't see me doing that and telling you what I did, but I'm telling you right now what I did to create that division between the two. Okay, so with our next video I will show you how to add grass texture. Alright, here's what my painting looks like for the most part. Okay, there are some little areas where there is white, and that's okay, but my painting will not end up that way. I'm working on it as a whole, so this way you can see I'm bringing it all up together. There's not one area that is more finished than anything else at this point, except for maybe that one limb where I was working and showing you. So that's what I mean by working on it as a whole. I'm not focusing on one spot and making it exactly perfect. I'm trying to work on everything and bring it all up together. So next time I will show you how to add more grass, and hopefully next time I will have at least one tree done and maybe a little bit more done, and then I'll show you how I add grass texture, and then I'll show you how I add the leaves. The leaves are usually the very last thing that I do, just because then I can dry brush them in and try to have everything else finished, and then that's like the last thing and I'm done. But this is probably 50% done. I've got all the base color in, and I'm starting to add in my smaller details, thinking about how much detail my foreground has, how much detail my middle ground has, and how little detail my background has, and working with it there. Also making sure that I'm going from my lighter things to darker things to help create that illusion of depth. Remember, that's what we're working on creating, is the illusion of depth. Okay? The element of space, creating the illusion of depth, and then monochromatic, which is one color. My color is red, plus its tints, so colors plus white, and its shades, colors plus black or brown. We use black, but you can use brown. Okay? So, monochromatic landscape. This is how we added some bark and some other information for you as well.